medicine goes back a far long way, but so does much else, right? I mean, if you take a look at the world powers that be, people now on the internet are speculating upon, well, who are the true people in control of this universe? And sometimes I don't like to refer it as people, because there's often forces that take control of people. So to say people, I feel like it's still too generalized. And the same thing could be said about globalism. While I agree that globalism is more specific when we're talking about who's in control of things, it's people who want world domination, who have a lust and greed for war and power and control. But it's more than that sometimes, because people look toward doing rituals. Yes, it still exists nowadays, and 100% it does. Look at New Age rituals, it goes alongside the same thing. Is people are looking to do certain things thinking that it's helping them, right? And when someone escapes Christianity, they may go to Satanism. When somebody becomes a Jewish person, they may turn to Zionism. Okay, and a lot of these things will take control of people, but I will say that all religions, to some extent, control people, and just in their very nature, in the way they control people. So then you take a look at drugs. Well, in their very nature, they're often controlling people. If you take a look at natural medicine, it's not really necessarily a cult belief system. It's something that simply is true. Yes, we should use nature as medicine. In fact, nature is the answer. It's not necessarily a ritual or a cult or a belief system or ideology. It's just speaking upon what simply is. See, you shouldn't have to fall under this and preach and bow down to this message. I'm not asking you to, and I'm not asking you to promote it either, even. But it's a simple message through time that I consider the mission that grows of importance as we move into eras of technology dominance, where it fits often with the narrative of Satanism, where it fits often in the narrative of Zionism. I'm going to have a video about Israel's involvement in our health industry. As we know, they dominate the tech industry, and alongside China, often working with them, as much of the other nations as well. So while some people want to criticize China, it's also Israel, which is a much, much, much smaller nation, and you can't even compare, but so much smaller, yet has all this enormous power over the world. And there's some people now speaking up about this even moreover than they ever used to. Look at people like David Icke. Some people thought he would never criticize him. Now it's all he's criticizing because it's only growing in importance. And are some people not talking about it? Are they being bought out, controlled? There's often some talk and speak about this, and I have a lot of thoughts about it. You know, I promote Infowars and a lot of their works and a lot of their articles, their studies, their members, and a lot of them know about this too. Maybe they don't always talk about it, and that's why it's good that people online hold them accountable, right? Because I'm willing to talk about anything, and for the most part, they seem very free-minded, free-spoken. But how come they aren't talking about certain things? You have to question, right? And there's certain people like No More News who have held them accountable quite well, and is opening the debate even more, which takes a lot of bravery and a lot of precision, and he's showing the evidence right there and then, to which even the Infowars crew is catching on to. But I know to new listeners that may sound a little weird, but the truth is, independent media sometimes has a war with itself when it comes to what is truth and what isn't. Who's truly in control and who isn't, right? I mean, is it the Jesuits? Is it the the Templar Knights, because they're connected. But a lot of it is you can bring it down to basic things. Okay, so you can say it's the occult, a very big thing there. Hidden power and hidden knowledge in its very nature is power differential between those at the top and those at the bottom, and how they remain the gap. So that is something that you can say, yes, that is happening, that is general, but it's also quite literally at the roots of things, and it doesn't cause too much debate. The fact that there is hidden information, the fact that there is an agenda, the fact that that you shouldn't trust what you see in the mainstream media, that is a general consensus. But the details to come from it, sometimes causing wars within our community, is unhealthy to actually spreading the message, you see. And so I don't promote name-calling person this, name-calling that, but I do promote accountability. So it's a very ironic situation, which is why I have very unique views on the subject. It's because I'm not going to side and say, okay, well, we should call this person a Zionist because they're not talking about this, or a gatekeeper, and we should throw this name on them. I'm not about doing that. In fact, that's the whole reason why you promote your own content that you believe in. And you share that with the world and see. And of course, it would help if other people help give you that stage, that public access, so you can get your message out there, especially if you do have work that deserves attention and is getting attention by those who follow you deeply in your community. And it's a tight circle. You see what I mean? You built your community by scratch because they see the genuine honesty. They see that freedom, and that's something that the independent media will always beat the mainstream media, and is the fact that it's genuine. The fact that people can not only believe in it more, which can sometimes make it dangerous to an extent, but the fact that they can relate. And in natural medicine, or people who don't necessarily need 8 years of schooling to become a doctor and help someone out with just eating better, the same thing goes. It's like, why do you need someone who has done all those years, instead had more years of experience, instead who is more like you, who maybe had some bad experiences before they got into the whole health craze? Someone who can understand you more, is not dry and just going to prescribe you things and make money off of you because they're in loads of debt and the system is built around that way, giving them the obligation of doing that and your obligation of just eating junk food. You see, it's convenience, but it's also obligation. And therefore, oftentimes, finding health is creating the obligation for yourself to make the right changes in your life. And so when it comes to finding the truth, make the obligation of questioning things. We can't be set in stone and say this is that. We need to keep a very open mind to all the ideas that exist and bring them all in together in a discussion. However, like I said, there are certain things we can place a bet on. I mean, not a bet, but are set in stone. And you can say things like natural law. You can say things like statism, very big. Right off the bat, that debunks globalism. I mean, that's like the complete opposite. It's alongside anarchy, real anarchy. And and then it's like, you have to debunk all these little hidden isms and ists, and that within itself becomes a problem, as everybody perceives these differently, oftentimes, and it's confusing. It's a lot like dieting, like I'm this, I'm that, I'm gonna go toward this idea or that idea, and I think it works for me because I put my belief system in it, and I devote my whole life into it. Like, just because you put all your effort into it doesn't mean you can't walk out. I mean, it takes willpower to change in this world, okay? And it takes that awareness to start to wake up to what's going on. And your bravery to change or be flexible is actually proof of your humanity. Another reason why politicians are such great liars and deceivers is because they become so twisted in their way of thinking they can't leave out. It's impossible for them to escape being so denatured in their very nature, if that makes any sense. But of course, I could go on about that. The truth is when we're looking at the truth, people will always want to perceive it different ways, and it causes a lot of conflict. And the truth is, it's always a matter of everything, and certain things more than others will deserve more attention through time. And that's what you'll see on the internet. People will mention certain things for certain reasons, like defending the European race. Hey, they have a reason for doing that. For attacking the censorship, well, they have full reason to do that. Getting so defensive about their beliefs, they have a reason behind doing that. Some of them are straight up ignorant and just follow the crowd, and they are unable to think about it. Other people are able to think about it, and they have a strong position based on some very, very strong beliefs that are well rooted in something, but they can still be more well rooted in a unity between a lot of different ideas. You see, I think that's where the best of truth can be found, is that unity between all the ideas. Okay, and so you may not be an expert in this or an expert in health, right? But the truth is, you can understand all these aspects in their very nature, in their principle. Why do they exist? Why people believe in them? What makes people believe in them? What's the premises behind these ideas? It's not like we have to gain a very specific understanding, but there's no reason why we can't have an open mind. It really is contradictive. You complain about censorship, and yet you won't bring on certain topics onto your show or talk about certain things, then yes, it's going to create a conflict of balance, and people are going to call you out for it. Expect it. And if people don't know your views on something, well, expect the outcry. So there's certain things that you can say, well, it's expected because you have a lack of transparency, or you did not make something clear, or you didn't leave a good sign on something. You know what I mean? Like, if you react the same way that you criticize other people for, then people are going to call you out for it. And that's important to note, because the shadow effect that we do, what we think and personally, is often the case, but it's not always the case. I'm saying it's sometimes often the case, and it's often referred to as the shadow. And when you look into all the occult stuff, you can get trapped in that. That's how you usually get into it. And very dangerous sometimes, very dangerous where you put your mind into. Do you want to put your mind into this really complex understanding, or would you put it into more simple understandings? Because I have previous podcasts talking about simplicity, and I heavily believe in that to be the case for truth, not necessarily complexity. Why do we need to know every little detail about life to actually live in life? Because our goal is to live, correct? And live happy and healthy. Is that really that hard? Do we really need a whole bunch of science behind it? And do we need to know every little occult understanding? Or is it just as simple as don't harm another person, or don't steal from another person? Why is it that we had to make it difficult? If you think about all the technology, all the drugs we make, it just added responsibilities onto our life. In truth, we just need more water when it comes to health. We just need more sun, more sleep. It's really simple. And the fact that can get twisted into, you must do this, you should buy this supplement because it's going to work for this, or you have to do this comprehensive guide to heal something. Just don't get limited to that belief system. I'm not saying that it wouldn't work. I'm saying don't be limited to that, because what gets you there in the first place, what brought us here to the first place, is having the basic fundamentals to life. Survival is first priority, right? And oftentimes, though, our survival is the left brain too. So you got to be careful, because we live in a very left brain dominant society, and it's always pushing us to do things, the fight or flight, the stress response hormones. Okay, so we need some of that caring, nurturing side of us, that holistic point of view, to help balance that out. But then we can't become too holistic or too new agey, because then it's like, again, conflict of balance only occurs when the balance is off the balance, you see, when it's a lack of balance. And everything that causes problems typically has a lack of balance somewhere at some time, and then finding what that balance is, well, it's like you're on the balance scale, and the only way you can see what's on the other end of the balance scale, sometimes you can't see it, because you're so pushed down on that seesaw that you can see the top, but how do you actually get back down to that top unless somebody's on the other side of that seesaw? You see what I mean? How do you create the balance unless somebody is on the other side? So oftentimes you need somebody's help to balance the seesaw, and that just shows you need someone's help sometimes to balance your life, right? There's a point and reason why you have a man and woman. There's a point and reason why you have masculine and feminine, the right and left brain, yin and yang, sun and moon, principle of polarity. All that exists, in that such reflection. So, reflections in some regards, yes, ironic. And when we talk about occultism and stuff like that, we want to be careful that we're not trapped into what we study sometimes. Definitely look into it if you feel like it'll actually be worth of action. If you have the understanding behind why exactly what you're gonna do with the information at hand. But other than that, some people will seek out certain things that they may think are in service to them, but we know it's not, right? People do it all the time. So, although maybe somebody thinks it's harmless, well, you're investing your time into that. And, the expression, time is money. But, money, as we know, is not necessarily a real thing, the paper money that we use. So, what is the real money? It's this currency. What's currently this? What is our time? Do we spend our time wisely? Do we act upon what we must use with the resources that we have? It's better to have it before you need it, is the expression in preparation. And it's true. It's better to have sunlight before you need it. It's better to have water before you need it. Right? And there's times when people get the wake-up call like, oh my gosh, I was dehydrated the whole time. That's why my kidneys were failing. Like, now you have a domino effect storm in your body just because you didn't do a simple thing. Where you sat in the wrong position, now you have pain. I mean, there's a domino effect because of what you did. And you lacked the comprehension of the simple things, yet you're studying all this other stuff. And you get sidetracked. And it's not worth your time. And it's not going to do any real good for the world, I get in sometimes these long, lengthy discussions with people online about stuff. But that's not going to do any real good for the world unless we can bring action to that. It's really important that we talk about that in the truth community. Especially since, once we connect all these dots and say, okay, well, we can talk about medicine and connect it to politics because they're one and the same. Okay, and that all this stuff is connected, and there's deeper underlying root issues at hand, like statism, that is affecting people's health. Well, then what can we do for statism? There are certain actions that we can take, like not voting, ironically, like stop supporting politicians, like promoting principles of freedom that we know to be true, that we know we are free, that we have innately as human beings. Promoting natural law through action. You know what I mean? Because if we work with nature, it will work with us. And when we work with politicians, when we work with drugs, we're just expecting to get something. But it's not realistic. It isn't realistic, so why do you expect it to be true? You sit there in a belief system as you usually do for much else. But you don't actually know the results, when you can actually correlate and understand the results because you see the patterns that exist within nature. That if I do this, I will get this result. I've seen it, I've experimented, I've experienced, I felt it, I heard it, and then you live it. It becomes your reality. So when you say you want something, like you want freedom, and you're telling everybody, well, we need to be free. Well, the truth is, you actually are free. And when you say we need love, we actually already have that. There's no reason why we can't. But the only reason why we promote it online is because we want other people to have it as well. Okay? That's the big message at hand here. Because there's no reason why you can't have that stuff now. You just need to applicably apply it. Whether it is using some of the help of a health coach, or having someone there with you, a loved one, or really sitting back to think about your life, or taking the time out in nature to really observe the patterns that do exist. But it's taking all these resources that I mentioned before in combo and effect to create the best of our resources. What do we use our resources for? To build a building, right? To build a foundation first, so the building doesn't collapse, and then we create the building, and then it grows according to how much we actually need. And just think about the patterns in nature of what we do and what we do unconsciously, and it starts to become more apparent as to what we should do consciously in our life to create the change that we desire. Okay, that is partly the law of attraction, as I mentioned, natural law, for sure. Okay, but I'm telling you that freedom exists, freedom is here, love is here, liberty is here. All of that is here. It's acceptance, it's application, and spreading it online is wanting other people to do the same. But the real work is often in real life. And being that everybody's technology dependent now, let's hope that we can use technology to help us in real life, because we're going to need it. We spend more time in technology than we do in real life. So of course, our real life is going to be slacking. Of course, there's not going to be enough done. Or there won't be enough done for us, but everybody else will keep doing more, which keeps us in control by them. Because they're the ones innovating and we're not. And they keep their innovative strategies away from us, which is the occult. And that keeps you looking to the occult when in reality, you need to just see nature. Because that is the occult. And what is simply present that you just aren't comprehending to understand. The innate knowledge of intelligence that exists for you to understand and then apply into wisdom for, again, the life to manifest of nature. So is your life of nature or is it not? Because that's the big question when it comes to truth, especially in a world of technology and denaturing. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Corey Edmund Engelat. Nature's the answer. I'm not saying that Zionism or globalism or any of this stuff is not in control of our planet. In fact, it very much often is. And the occult is important to look at. But I'm asking you, are you looking at nature as the solution, as the answer? Thank you. Goodbye.